How's it going, everybody? It's Pilot Flame, and we are back with the Game Week preview for Game Week 6. And we're going to be taking a look at how we did in the previous Game Week, as we normally do, the predictions for the next Game Week, as well as how we did in the previous Game Week. And we're going to kind of go through some potential transfers. I got 2 free transfers this Game Week, so it should be quite interesting as to see what I am potentially going to do, because I don't even know myself, although I'm tempted by a few players. We're also going to see how ownership can potentially kill a game week for certain players, one being me this week. And we're also going to take a venture into potentially looking at getting rid of our Liverpool defenders altogether. So just a couple of other things for maintenance purposes, as it were. Remember, the deadline is earlier this week. It is on Friday, so I'm going to be doing the deadline stream Thursday evening, the same time that we started this one, 7 p.m. EDT, and same for next week as well. Those game weeks are slightly earlier because the games start on the Friday. Also, I've been putting posts over on YouTube to let people know about the streams. Let me know if you like those. I've been doing them and seeing if people paid attention to them, and see if we can attract some more people over to the live stream, because we like our YouTube community, but we also like our Twitch community over here as well. Also, when it comes to videos this week, you can see, if you go on Twitter, you can see the videos are very compressed this week. So we have the preview today, we have 2 videos on tomorrow, we have 2 videos on Wednesday, we have the the deadline on Thursday with no videos on Friday and Saturday, and just the gaming video on Sunday. So yeah, going to be quite compressed for the next couple of weeks, just because of the way they've decided to put games on Friday. And for me, it makes it so that I have to do things a little bit more compactly. So I'm going to be a bit busy Monday through Thursday. So, but it's going to be definitely worth it. So make sure to tune in for all of that content. Now, I've been talking long enough with Aguero, very excited behind me. So without further ado, let's get into the preview show. So, as you can see over to my, would be my left, it'll be your right hand side of the screen. We got 54 points this week with the team that you see up on the screen, a 3.4 million game week rank, which isn't great, and we have 277 points overall. We did see a rank decrease. We went from around 1.3 million last week to 1.8 million, and we were looking quite good after Saturday, so nothing really to to kind of worry about until Spurs kind of sank that ship for me. We didn't make any transfers last week, and we have 2 free ones going into this week. So just kind of running through the team here really quickly. McCarthy, Castagne, Trent, all not the most glamorous for their performances. I kind of expected Chelsea to score. McCarthy didn't keep a clean sheet, unfortunately, but we did get a return the other way. He did concede more than 2, which, I kind of expected him to do. I didn't expect Southampton to pull it back and make it 3-0, but that was an interesting game nonetheless. Castagne, very disappointing to lose 1-0 so late on, when it looked like the game was going to a 0-0. He had some chances early on to potentially put in for players, and then his final ball let him down. Not great overall. Trent, again, just looking kind of out of it, very deep, kind of worried that he got just blitzed defensively. And Robertson is the one that I could potentially be looking to keep, going forward. Could potentially get rid of both of them, but we'll have to see. I think Robertson is still definitely worth it. I mean, if you look at his, his performances just quickly, 4, 6, 10. He had the one-off game that, wasn't great, and then 6 again. So it's not like he definitely underperformed. And this game where he got 6 points was in a game where, Van Dijk was injured for 80 minutes of it. So definitely going to be interesting to see that going forward. So just a one-off blip for him. Whereas Trent, on the other hand, 177. So they got the clean sheet, and he got an assist here. But Robertson also got the same. He got 10 points in this one because he scored, and they both kept the clean sheet. But just the ones to show for it. Only 1 assist this season, not great. Robertson looking a lot better with 1 goal, 2 assists. And, you know, they're going to have to be getting attacking returns if they're going to want to stay in people's teams, mine included. And I think that if they don't keep the attacking returns, then they're just basically really, really expensive defenders, because you look to secondary as the clean sheets in this case. James getting us 4 points, you know, not the end of the world. He did get booked, so that was kind of annoying, but he played very well overall. I'm happy with his performances. I mean, he's only blanked his, you know, his first game week, where he was heavily involved and still playing quite well, and the Crystal Palace game, which, you know, they ended up winning anyway. So his performances have been, you know, spectacular thus far, and he's not going anywhere. Fernandez missing a penalty. I thought it was doom and gloom, and then he just shows why he's such a good player, getting a goal and assist, and what a goal it was, right in the top corner on the break. Salah, 5 captaincy choices in 5, doing quite well. Potence had a few chances, you know, in today's game, but overall still, you know, a bit of a rotation risk. Basically, we could have had a really good week. We could have had 6+ more points. We could have been in the 60+, you know, point bracket, which would have been nice. We would have been above the average, which I think is going to be around like high 50s. So, or we would have been probably bang on the average. So, not too bad there if Mitrovic had done what he did, but unfortunately, not so much, and that's why his stats probably weren't showing up. So, yeah. And then obviously the bench, not really much we could do here, apart from Mitchell playing over Mitrovic. But again, that's just 1 point. Not the end of the world there. So, let's move into our predictions that we had for last week. We're going to bring in the ones from my Twitter across here into the clean sheets and differential picks from last week here. So I said that Liverpool would win 3-2. They almost did. They had a goal ruled for offside, which was as close as you're going to get to being offside or onside as the rule would provide. So unfortunately did not get the result. Where also, if you're not familiar with the way we do the scoring here, you get 1 point for the correct result. So if it was a 3-0 and you predicted 2-0, you still get 1 point for that. If you get the exact score, it's 3 points, and if you don't get the result right at all, it's 0 points. So we didn't get any points there because it was a draw, and we predicted a win. We predicted a Chelsea win. It was a draw as well. We predicted a Man City 3-1 win. It ended up being 1-0, so we still got 1 point for that. Newcastle and Man United, we predicted a 1-1. It was a 4-1. So we don't get any points for that. Thank goodness. I'll take that every day of the week. Fulham versus Sheffield United. It ended up being a draw, so no points there. Brighton, again, not a win there. It was a 1-1 draw. Spurs, we predicted 2-1 over West Ham. Again, another draw. Leicester, predicted a 3-1 win. It was a draw. No, it was a loss, rather, for Leicester. Burnley and West Brom, we predicted a 1-1. It was a 0-0. And then Leeds, we predicted a 2-0 win, and it ended up being a 1-0 win for Wolves. So overall, we got 2 results right, which is absolutely, I think, possibly the worst I think I've ever done for predictions. So, and this week was definitely unpredictable. So 2 points overall is not great at all. So we'll look to potentially fix that next week. In terms of clean sheets, though, we got Burnley right because it ended up being a 0-0. So Burnley clean sheet. Meslier for Leeds did not keep a clean sheet, so that wasn't good there. Tellez also didn't play. Bale missed the sitter, and Brewster came on as a sub and didn't do anything. So overall, we want to cover this up. This we want to definitely do better than this rubbish here. So some surprises of the week. City keeping a clean sheet is probably one of them I didn't expect, to be perfectly honest. Liverpool and Everton was a very entertaining game. Chelsea and Southampton, again, Chelsea was, you know, by and far controlling the game, and then all of a sudden let the lead go. Same with Spurs. Again, Leicester just couldn't find their actual final cutting edge pass to create that one golden chance. And Aston Villa continued their run of form. Sheffield United and Fulham look, you know, kind of weak. Brighton not taking their chances, specifically Mope in that game. Crystal Palace's XG, and they managed to get a point out of an XG of 0 from open play, which is interesting. West Brom and Burnley. For those in the UK, I feel sorry for you if you actually paid $14.95 or whatever it is to watch your team on Sky or BT or whatever it is. It's a disgrace. I would suggest finding a service that makes it so that that's a little bit cheaper. Because over here in Canada we have it nice. So with DAZN. And then Wolves versus Leeds was very entertaining. Again, did Wolves really deserve to win the game? And maybe in the second half potentially, but overall, I think Leeds were probably still a slightly better team. But again, Wolves have been doing that for the last few seasons, just scraping by and getting the clean sheet with the 1-0 victory. Moving on to the fixtures for this week, we have a bunch of interesting ones actually. So the first one is the informed team versus the new, kind of the new hot thing on the block, as it were. So Aston Villa versus Leeds. I think this could be quite an interesting game. I think this game could be quite open. I think it could be quite a shootout. I think that with Aston Villa on form as they are, I don't think they can keep it up, and I think Leeds will want to bounce back. I see this going to be a very high-scoring game. I'm going to say Leeds 3-2 in this one. West Ham versus Manchester City. Now, West Ham just probably going to be buzzing from coming back from 3-0 down. And I think that mentality needs to leave Spurs if they're going to want to keep, challenging, or try to get into the top 4. I think that Manchester City is the type of team that if they get a 3-0 lead, that turns into 5 or 6 really easily. I also think that their ball retention's a lot better than Spurs naturally, just as the game progresses, because they'll just tire you out to death with passes. And I think City should win this game comfortably. I think they'll still concede 1 goal, but I think City will win this game 3-1. No issues there. Crystal Palace versus Fulham. I think they'll probably do a highway robbery as they normally do, because Mitrovic looked like he was just having a bad day, and I think that's probably going to continue, because once his mental goes, he starts getting yellows, he starts getting sent off, he starts doing things that are very bad, like missing penalties, and I think he's already started that, and I don't think Fulham are in a good way at the moment, having just barely got a point for themselves. So I think they're probably going to end up losing the game. Crystal Palace will probably hit them on the break once or something like that, and it'll probably end 1-0 or something. Man United versus Chelsea. This is going to be the battle of the attacks and the midfielders, because both teams don't really have a defense to kind of work off of at the moment. They're all about the attack. And I think that this will potentially play into United's hands, who I think have a slightly better defense. Although with Harry Maguire potentially being out long term, that could be a bit of a problem. And with Chelsea's attack looking so good, it could be a bit of an issue, especially now that they'll have Ziyech back. He may play a little bit in the Champions League and then play, from the start on Saturday. This could be a bit of an interesting one. I think it's going to be high scoring no matter what. I'm going to sit on the fence with it. I think both teams will score quite a bit. And I think 2-2 is probably a fair scoreline. Liverpool versus Sheffield United. I think Liverpool will still keep a clean sheet, even with Van Dijk out long term, even with Alisson out. Just Sheffield United, they scored only 1 versus Fulham, who are bad. I think 3-0 is probably a fair result. Southampton versus Everton could be a bit interesting. I think Everton are still culpable at the back, and Liverpool definitely showed that. And I think Southampton defensively have shored themselves up a bit more than what they normally would have. Chelsea's attack was quite good, and they kind of carved them open a couple of times. Just individual brilliance and just like one moment of just kind of not paying attention for Southampton. They got to cut that out if they want to actually progress higher than like mid-table, to get into like that 7th and 8th bracket, which is probably what they're aiming for. And I think that Southampton can still give them Everton a bit of a tough time. I think Everton will still ultimately win the game. I think Southampton will probably still get 1, which is kind of what I'm hoping. So I think 3-1 is probably going to be a good scoreline for that. Wolves, I think this is just going to be another 1-0 game for Wolves. Pretty straightforward here, nothing really too crazy to kind of talk about. Newcastle just aren't very good. They got a lucky goal versus United. They could have probably scored with Callum Wilson, which probably made up for the fact that they did get a lucky goal. And Wolves don't really create much going forward. They had a bunch of block shots in the Leeds game, and Jimenez was very lucky to score. But they had no real like breakaways, and Traore came on and did basically nothing. So I think Wolves will win the game 1-0. Arsenal versus Leicester. This is a bit of a tricky one to call because Leicester, again, not, since the Man City game, haven't really hit the heights of that game. Could be quite interesting. Leicester, if they allow Arsenal to have the ball, which is probably what Arteta might do, might fall into that trap, then I can definitely see Leicester doing well in this game. It's gonna be a bit interesting. I think that if Leicester let Arsenal have the ball and hit them on the break, and they have Vardy back, then they should be in good shape. But again, the injury concerns, I'm not too sure about. I'm going to sit on the fence here. I don't think both teams are very good going forward at the moment, especially with Vardy out, and especially with Arteta changing like his trying to play Willian as a false 9 and these sorts of things. So I'm going to just go with a 1-1 here. Brighton versus West Brom. This should be quite comfortable for Brighton. I think a 2-0 victory is, would suffice for them. And then Burnley versus Tottenham. Burnley are going to sit back. They're going to hit Spurs, on set pieces, and they'll definitely concede from one of those. And I think Burnley will definitely score, and I think that they'll probably end up getting a result there. I think 2-1 is probably a fair scoreline. In terms of clean sheets and differentials this week, I think Wolves is pretty straightforward. They're playing Newcastle. No, nothing really much else to say there. I think in goal, I think Pope could be pretty good this week, because if the chances aren't clear-cut for Spurs, if they have to actually create the chances from something and have a shot on target in some way, then I think that, we could see a situation where Pope makes a lot of saves. And I think that he could be quite good this week. So don't be surprised if Pope racks up a few saves versus Spurs. But if they're clear-cut, just breakaway chances, which Burnley have been, slightly improving their defense as the season's going on, could be interesting. And the next one is actually Kilman. He's played 2 games in 2. He's gotten, he's doing well for himself. I think tonight he's going to end up with 12 points. He's playing in one of the center back positions in the back 3 for Wolves. Don't see any reason why to drop him, and he's 4 million, so could be quite a fantastic player for Nuno Espirito Santo in that slot, as long as Johnny is out long term and he just plays Saiss at left wing back. There will be rotation eventually, like where you'll see like Saiss will get the night off and Marcao will play there, or Saiss will play in left center back and Kilman will get the night off, so on and so forth. We'll have to see. I think he could potentially be a very good asset at 4 million. In midfield, we've gone with Marcus Rashford. He definitely loves scoring versus Chelsea. He's a very big game player. He's got a goal and 2 assists in the previous game versus Newcastle. I think he's the type of player that if Chelsea are going to have the majority of the possession, he's definitely one of the players for United that can hurt them. And I think he's a big differential pick going into these next few games because, Everton's probably going to have a large portion of the ball. Arsenal, United will probably let them have a large portion of the ball. Same for Chelsea. And Rashford does very well against teams that, allow him to basically hit them on the break. And then lastly, we have Mikel Antonio, who for West Ham, I think, can definitely hit City on the break at some point. They are still susceptible, especially down their flanks. And I think Antonio is the type of guy that's going to be, the informed player to potentially, get involved in and among the goals. So yeah, that's my clean sheet and differential picks for the week, as well as our predictions. The games I'm really excited to see this week are the Leeds Aston Villa game on the Friday is a very good game to start off the week. And then the Saturday, a bunch of nicely spread out games. You're going to have West Ham versus City. Fulham versus Palace probably isn't the most exciting game in the world. Chelsea versus Man United is going to be good. Liverpool, we're going to have to see, are they actually good defensively? Because they're going to need to keep clean sheets versus teams like Sheffield United. Southampton versus Everton could be a very energetic game. Wolves versus Newcastle is probably going to be a very, kind of slow-paced, kind of mundane, grind-out type of win for Wolves. Arsenal versus Leicester could be a very interesting one. It could also be very boring if both managers come out to be quite passive. And then Brighton and Spurs should be, pretty straightforward versus their respective, teams that they're playing in West Brom and Burnley. So we'll kind of just have to see how that kind of, plays out overall. So this is how the team lines up for this week. So we have McCarthy in goal, who's versus Everton. Not ideal because we have 2 Everton attackers that obviously would rather score. And, in an ideal sense, it would be, a 2-1 Everton win. with Danny Ings scoring for Southampton, and then James to Calvert-Lewin twice, and then maybe McCarthy picks up a couple of save points or something like that. That would potentially be nice, the best possible outcome I could get from that game, I would think. But again, not really expecting too much. These were the two games on the fixture list that weren't great. Aston Villa away, McCarthy will probably end up getting some decent saves. Newcastle should be fine. Wolves should be fine. United might not be great. Brighton, their finishing hasn't been great, so that kind of favors him a bit. Sheffield United could be okay. And then, Arsenal a bit, pragmatic. City's probably going to be bad. Fulham is probably okay as well. But again, a bit of a mixed bag there. In defense, we could potentially mix in some transfers, but on paper right now, we have Robertson and Alexander-Arnold, who are probably likely to get a clean sheet versus Sheffield United, even with Adrian out, or Adrian in rather, Alisson out, and Van Dijk out long term as well. I think that they just they should be fine. Sheffield United only scored 1 versus Fulham, and they don't look very good going forward, so we'll kind of have to see what type of shape Liverpool come in. I do have to make a transfer this week because otherwise I'll burn a transfer, which is not something that I want to do. Castagne versus Arsenal, not great considering their form. Castagne, we brought him in, we've got value on him, but again, the next few aren't looking too good. Arsenal, could potentially pose a threat. Leeds have been looking quite attacking, although they didn't score today versus Wolves, who are a very good defensive team. But we need to start seeing some attacking output, and with Vardy out, he could be one that potentially makes way as well in the not too distant future. We only brought him in just recently, but again, could be looking at him. James and Calvert-Lewin in the Everton double-up look perfectly fine. Fernandes is someone who, at the beginning of, this game week, game week 5, I was thinking, well, maybe I get rid of him. But now, he's hit 3-3. He is the type of player that is going to do good in the big games. He's captain for Manchester United's game versus PSG tomorrow. So he could be an interesting prospect, versus Chelsea as well. And if you think if Mendy's not back, then you could think Kepa could potentially give away another penalty or cause something crazy to happen, and that could favor the likes of Fernandes. Even though he did miss his penalty, but I think that's going to be few and far between. And who knows, Rashford might get the next penalty, so we'll have to see on that front. Salah is going to definitely be my captain this week, almost certainly. It just makes the most sense. Sheffield United have been bad. Liverpool offensively have been very good. Scoring multiple goals in the games that they've played. In the Leeds game they scored 4, versus Chelsea they scored 2, Arsenal 3, Aston Villa 2, Everton 2. So, and Salah's been in and among it as well, scoring in the last game as well. Podence, since we've had him, he's blanked. He didn't play, but we had someone come on who scored 3 points for us, I believe it was, and then he's got 3-3. So he could be a type of player that's going to be consistent. I don't think that at his current price point, we're expecting anything miraculous out of him. If he wants to stay on par, he gets an assist this coming game week. I still think he could potentially be dropped this week, and then we're looking to our bench, and it doesn't look like there's much coming off it, so we're going to potentially have to shore that up going into this game week. I may need more information. I may go with like a very conservative transfer to kind of figure things out, but we'll kind of have to see. And then the front line, Calvert-Lewin and Ings have done quite well. We brought in Ings in a couple of games ago. He misfired versus West Brom, but his team ultimately won. And then he scored versus Chelsea. So again, I think he can definitely score versus Everton, no problem, because Pickford's just that bad. Aston Villa, again, they're good defensively, but Ings is quite clinical. Newcastle will probably definitely score against, and it could be a captaincy option there. Wolves, they haven't really had a team from that I know of that's going to go in there and press them really, really hard. Sheffield United are not going to really do that. City, they held their own, mainly due to the fact it was City's first game, so again, and they did concede, but again, not the greatest. West Ham was probably the real test for them. Leeds, they did quite well, but dropped off a bit in the second half, even though retaining the ball quite a lot. But again, I think that when they play Southampton, it could be a team that is just full of energy and pressing quite a lot. It could be a bit of a different story for Wolves, as an example, in this regard. Lost my train of thought a bit there. Not even sure where I was going with it. But anyway, we're going on to Mitrovic, who could make way, even though he does play Palace, and on paper, you know, his next two fixtures look quite good, but he just looks pretty out of it. You know, we wanted to keep him for these potential fixtures, assuming the plans, you know, went accordingly. But again, Palace look, you know, pretty solid defensively. Him missing a penalty isn't great, so he's blanked in the last three with a penalty miss, and his penalty wasn't good the first time he took it when he got his brace, so overall not looking good. And then the bench is pretty bare bones here, so we're gonna have to kind of change some things up there. But if I keep this team, this is how it would probably line up, almost certainly. But we have 2 free transfers, so we're going to take a look at and explore some of the things that we could potentially be changing around in the team. So I'm just going to bring up the price rises potentially for tonight, just to kind of take a quick peek as to who potentially that could be going up tonight. So the likes of James Rodriguez, Son, Tyrone Mings, Kane, Martinez, Cresswell, these sorts of players could be going up. And then players that could be going down is Vardy, Soyuncu, anyone else that's of note here. Trent Alexander-Arnold could potentially be going down. And that's pretty much about it for the most part. But Trent's been supposedly going down for the last few nights, but we might have to just kind of wait and see, you know, on that front. Trent will definitely be the one that makes way over Robertson if there is one, and it's just a matter of which defender I go to. I think that probably the best, you know, solid defender that I could go to is somebody probably in the Wolves camp. You know, I think that Slice playing at left wing back could potentially be a rotation risk. We saw Mark Howell come off the bench. You know, maybe Semedo is the one to go for, although he looked a bit shaky. Is, you know, Kilman going to be there long term? Still not sure. But again, it's just really interesting to kind of, you know, pick apart how Wolves could potentially play it, because they can play it a bunch of different ways. Aston Villa getting another clean sheet for themselves, the likes of Konsa as an example. You know, they have a great run of fixtures. And they've done wonders for themselves. Actually, let's take a look at some of the, you know, the Aston Villa defenders. So you have Matty Cash, you have Target, you have Konsa, and you have Mings. So those are the 4 that are going to be, you know, in and involved in the defense. Mings would be the one to potentially go up. You know, threat from set pieces, very good at passing out from the back. Same with Konsa, who's going to be a bit cheaper. You know, it just kind of all depends on what you're kind of looking for. It's definitely not going to be Matty Cash for me. It would be Target, Konsa, or Mings, and I think I'll probably look at the potentially cheaper options, because what we want to do with the team is basically we want to get Mitrovic out. As the title shows, we know that Mr. Sergio Aguero is back, and we would need to make 2.8 million elsewhere. That 2.8 million would come from the likes of Trent Alexander-Arnold, which so we can get up to a 4.7 million defender, which would be you know, ideal. So if we were to go for the likes of Konsa as an example, we would just be we would have 0.1 left in the bank. But I kind of still want to potentially address the bench, maybe, just because it looks a bit thin, and Podence could be a rotation risk. Ideally, I would go from Podence up to Foden. But again, if we were to go from you know, Podence to Foden, we're looking at 1 million elsewhere, so we would need to downgrade somebody. So are we downgrading Robertson to a 6 million or less defender? You know, we can't downgrade Burke. Ings is doing well for us. Calvert-Lewin's doing well for us. Castagna we kind of just brought in. But we could potentially downgrade him as well. It's a bit on the tough side, in terms of what we can and cannot do. The one transfer, you know, we do know that we can get a 4.5 million defender. Like, the only thing would be me considering if I have to get rid of somebody, and I wanted to do just the 2 transfers, Trent to somebody, it would be, you know, Lamptey could be the obvious choice going versus West Brom this coming week. Potential clean sheet there. Aston Villa play Leeds, so again, probably not necessarily the best time for clean sheets there. Crystal Palace could be interesting, but again, we need to downgrade to a 4.5-ish if you want Aguero for Mitrovic. So definitely a bit of a tough one in terms of other transfers. And other things that we can do as well is we could bring in Kane, but Kane would require a bit more resources. So if we were to bring in Kane, we would need to, if we got rid of Trent, it would be a 4.4 defender, which if Kilman's playing, then, you know, we can bring him in and just play him because he's done quite well for himself. And then we still have 0.4, and we could upgrade potentially Burke to like Souček or somebody like that. That could be, you know, something that we go for. The only problem is then we have to make 2 transfers if we want to adjust our defense anymore. If we were to look at Son, it would be like Burke out, Trent Alexander-Arnold out, Son would come in. Again, a 4.4 defender. Not ideal. We'd have to downgrade elsewhere. I mean, Podence, since he's a rotation risk, could go to the likes of Souček. And then we could get a 5 million defender. Or we could go for like you go for a -8, and then you could bring in, I'm just going to use Wilson as an example just because he's 6.5. Can't even do that. So we could bring in, it would have to be Antonio, like, so 6.4 or less, and then we could bring in a defender that's probably going to play. So again, it's a bit tricky without the wild card, but ideally at some point, basically the midfield that I would want is Salah. James might go at some point, but probably not in the near future, at least till, you know, if he gets injured or, you know, hits this run. And by this run, Everton could be more of a defined quantity. So we'll have to see on that front. Yeah, we'll have to see kind of how that plays out. But yeah, in terms of like the ideal midfield, when everyone's like fit and available to play, you know, Burke wouldn't be here, Podence wouldn't be here. Thomas would probably be there. Bruno, if he's playing well, would be there, but it would be like De Bruyne or some type of Man City midfielder, and then it would be some like a mid-priced midfielder with like Pulisic there, or Pulisic, however you want to pronounce his name, and that would be like the Fab Five midfield, and we would have two up front, with like one of those, the third forward being like Brewster or somebody like that. That's how I would envision it, I would think. But yeah, I kind of need to wait and see whether or not, you know, whether or not Aguero looks back to his best, because he might not play in the Champions League. He might just come on and get 30 minutes. He might start, and then, you know, the same thing happens again. He gets 60 minutes and then gets yanked off the field to preserve him for the Premier League. City have I would say still a tough game because they did come back and score three versus Spurs. But like I said, if City go up that early, it's probably over for West Ham. But again, this game plan all stems on how good Aguero actually is, and I'm in a bit of a crossroads because Fernandes is doing well, and being a United fan, obviously I have a little bit of bias. But I kind of want the price. If I could like freeze price changes until after the Champions League, that would be ideal. Because losing 0.1 on Trent wouldn't be the greatest thing in the world. And if they play a Champions League game, when is Liverpool? I think Liverpool plays the Champions League game on Wednesday. I could be wrong. Let's see. Liverpool. They play Ajax on Wednesday, so we'll have to see. We'll have to see, how they come out of that. United plays on Tuesday, which means City would play on Wednesday as well. So yeah, it's gonna be a bit tricky. I kind of want to wait and see to see what happens because I want to see if Aguero goes and plays in the game and he's on fire and doing well, then he's definitely up for consideration. Spurs play Europa, but I don't see Kane playing. I probably don't see Son playing unless they're super desperate, just kind of overall. And I have this kind of problem where I have players that are doing well at the moment, and it's just a matter of what move I can make to kind of shake things up. Do I go for more the conservative play, or do I go for more of like the attacking play? So like the conservative play would just be wait and see, wait for team news, wait till Friday, then do the transfers to find a way to bring in Kane or Son or both, right? That would be the conservative move. The attacking move would be trying to predict the next best thing. So is Aguero going to come in and light the world on fire? He could potentially definitely, do that versus West Ham. Let's say West Ham, they get overzealous and they start, pushing City back, and then City just absolutely crush them on the break or something like that. Which is, probably not going to happen because City's going to have the majority of the ball. But let's say West Ham's defense does the exact same thing as it did to the likes of Spurs in the first 10 minutes. I think if City go up 3-0, the game is actually just over. I don't think City concede those 3 goals because of the way they play. Where Spurs, they'll take their foot off the gas. City won't take their foot off the gas. Literally, they'll just if their version of taking the foot off the gas is just playing keep ball, which is just the most annoying thing. Where Spurs is taking their foot off the gas, and a Jose Mourinho team is we're gonna stay compact, we're gonna play defensive, which against City that's not gonna fly. So I think that City could definitely do well in this. It's just a real big headache because both Alisson and Van Dijk are out, but Liverpool have a very good fixture versus Sheffield United, so it's a matter of stick or twist in this scenario. Can Trent do well versus Sheffield United? Of course he can. Ken Robertson? Of course he can. They can both get clean sheets. They can both get double-digit point hauls, and we could be flying. Also, not to mention Trent's ownership is starting to drop, but it's still noticeable. 38% owned. Again, another game week where Kane and Son both played Burnley, who's they couldn't even score versus West Brom. That could be another massive score for Spurs for the offensive side of things. And then we also have other problems with players that we're potentially looking to get rid of. So Castagne we just brought in. Yeah, we got value on him, but his team's not doing well, even though he looks like he's playing decently. Handled Jack Grealish quite well. Created some chances, although final delivery kind of let him down a couple occasions. Podence looks lively, but again, it's getting subbed early. Could get rotated for Traore because it just seems like Neto just doesn't get subbed until super late in the game. Burke, it could be injured / out of favor now that Bruce is there because they have so many players that can play up front. Mitrovic just looks lacking ideas apart from just cross me the ball and hopefully I'll put in the back of the net once. And he does have a couple of good fixtures next with Crystal Palace and West Brom, but again, I'm not confident in his ability, and a lot of things have been, at least this season, more form over fixtures. So like if we would have gone into the, I'm just going to use Everton as an example. If we would have gone into the Everton game and expected them to control the game versus Spurs and grind and get a 1-0, we would expect them to score 5 past West Brom. I mean, we knew West Brom were bad, but I mean they did get a man sent off, so kind of helped out. Crystal Palace were coming with blazing form. Everton made it look somewhat comfortable, getting a 2-1. Brighton looked very good going into the game. They beat them 4-2. Liverpool, they had every reason to potentially, get a point out of that game or more potentially on, both sides. So it is a bit tough. It is a bit of a tough one. Just overall kind of picking and choosing what players to get rid of. If I had to say initial thoughts right now, probably the 2 transfers that I would do, just to be kind of just pretty straightforward and kind of looking to more. I like to kind of attack things to kind of get onto some things. Lamptey, next couple of fixtures. Spurs away isn't ideal. If Mitchell's still playing, we may still be able to play him. Who does he play? He plays Wolves away, so again, might not be the end of the world there. And then we bring in Aguero, and we just play Lamptey, Castagna, and Robertson. Put in Salah, Fernandez, James, Calvert-Lewin, Ings, and Aguero. But again, would ideally like a little bit more funds elsewhere. And I think the problem also stems around the fact that Bruno Fernandes is 10.5, whereas the likes of Son and Bale and Pulisic and these sorts of players are like 1 to 1.5 million or so, or even more less, so that you have this situation where you can rotate defenders just a little bit. You can put a little bit extra in your extra midfielder. So like if this was, let's say this is a Son, for example, Podence can just easily become Foden, in here. Still giving us 0.1. This could be Souček, which bolsters up our bench a little bit. Ferguson could be Konsa or some other defender. Then the team's looking a lot more balanced overall, and that's still something I'm potentially considering as well. So we'll have to wait and see. And then, like I said, a potential rotation risk. And how fit is Aguero? So I'm probably willing to take the 0.1 price drop if it happens tonight. I mean, Trent's been close a couple of times, saying like he's gonna drop. If he drops, I think 0.1's not the end of the world. It would mean that we have to change something up to get Lamptey if we wanted to, but again, there's still other options at 4.6, 4.5 in that realm that will provide value as well. So like Lamptey has been doing quite well, but in terms of like other Brighton defenders, if we wanted to go for them in Brighton, so Dunk's going to be out, so Ben White is an option, Webster's an option, Byrne is an option as well, who came in and played 80 minutes in the last game, but with Dunk out, he could potentially be just playing full time. For Burnley, they kept their first clean sheet, although they play Spurs, so it's not ideal, but Charlie Taylor is an option potentially. Leeds defenders could be quite good as well. So Dallas or Eiling, they play Aston Villa. So again, not the greatest fixture on paper at the moment because of the way Aston Villa is playing, but still could be something there. Just trying to look at some of the other. We still have Kyle Walker-Peters, but again, that'd be a Southampton double up, and Southampton play Everton, which isn't ideal for this game week specifically. West Ham, again, defenders would normally be good, but they have City and Liverpool in their next two. Wolves defense, a little bit more on the pricier side. So if we were to go with, like, you know, let's say we went and brought in Semedo, who's probably the most nailed down, I would say, out of all the defenders. We would still have to look at, so if we went from to Semedo, and then to Aguero, then we'd have to look at getting rid of 0.8 somewhere else, which could potentially be like, you know, 0.8's not easy to get without just getting rid of, you know, somebody else. If we got rid of Fernandez, we could get Son or something like that, which would be, you know, again, ownership's just a bit of a problem, because if Son, you know, blanks and then Fernandez does well, then I could have been ahead of the curve because I have no reason to drop Fernandez. But Son looked like 47% owned. Like, the dude's getting absolutely nuts scores, like, and there's no reason to say why they can't do it in these next three as well. So we're gonna have to kind of take a look at kind of things going forward. But as it stands now, this is the current team. So we'll just run it through one more time. McCarthy in goal. We have Trent Alexander-Arnold, Robertson, and Salah with the triple up in Liverpool defense and midfield. Castagne, James Rodriguez, Bruno Fernandes, Podence, Calvert-Lewin, Ings, and Mitrovic with Burke, Mitchell, Ferguson on the bench, and Steer as our backup goalkeeper. So on paper, the team looks okay. Again, we still have a clash with, you know, Southampton playing Everton, which, like last week, we had Everton versus Liverpool. Once those two are out of the way, then it could be smooth sailing overall. But ideally, I can see the game, you know, going in a situation where Everton win the game 2 or 3-0. Calvert-Lewin's probably going to score. James will probably be involved. If Ings gets one on the other end, then it's happy days for me overall. But again, Calvert-Lewin 53% owned. James Rodriguez 43% owned. Salah 46% owned. These are like ridiculously high owned players. If they keep banging, then you're like, unless you captain them, then, you know, you're just going to end up with a red arrow every. That's the reason. Like, before, this is one last thing I want to touch on. So after this game week, so we had, you know, we had Calvert-Lewin score with a James assist. You know, we had Salah score. We had Robertson assist in the Chelsea-Southampton game. We had Ings score and get a bonus point. So again, looking good. City versus Arsenal didn't hurt us. It was just a one Sterling goal, which isn't the end of the world. And then United, obviously, you know, Fernandez getting a goal assist was fantastic. Everything looking great. Sheffield United versus Fulham, it was annoying to have Mitrovic miss penalty, but at the end of the day, not the end of the world. Crystal Palace versus Brighton was fantastic. Both teams, no clean sheets in that. And the only real person doing damage was Zaha in terms of fantasy assets, but again, not really highly owned. And then this was the bad one, which was Son and Kane. Son goal assist, Kane 2 goals and an assist. That effective ownership caused me to lose, like, it was like 28 or 29 points effectively that was like taken off my score in a sense because of how much damage they did and how highly owned it. Like, Kane was like 117% owned. So if you like didn't have him, it was bad. If you didn't have him, or if you had him and you didn't captain him, you were seeing a red arrow anyway. If your captain didn't do as well as Kane, which most captains didn't, if at all. I think the only other captain that got close would have been Werner from Chelsea. So, but yeah, not the end of the world. You know, we were sitting at around like 500k at the end of Saturday, and now we're back up to 1.8. But again, things happen. You know, you can have some good game weeks, some bad game weeks. We got a red arrow this week, but we're looking forward to next week. Got to keep positive and all that good stuff. But yeah, that's going to do it for the Game Week 6 preview stream. Make sure to like, comment on the YouTube videos, subscribe, all that good stuff. We're going to be releasing a lot of content. It's going to be 2 videos a day for the next 3 days? 3 days? 2 days. It's going to be 2 videos on Tuesday, 2 videos on Wednesday, and the deadline stream on the Thursday. Remember, the deadline is actually on the Friday afternoon, my time. The first game is at, I believe it would be 3 p.m. EDT, because it's 4 p.m. my time, with Aston Villa versus Leeds. So again, I'm going to be doing the deadline stream for Game Week 6 the night before on the Thursday evening at 7 p.m. EDT, so make sure to check us out for that. I'll put a post on YouTube and Twitter as well, so make sure to follow us on those. Make sure to give us a follow here. Thanks again for all of those that have done so already. Much appreciated. Apologies for the technical difficulties. And until the next one, take care.